Augustine, this is Ollie.
Augustine, it is my pleasure to have you on World's Greatest Dad. We're just going to get right into the intro because we've got a lot to really talk to you about. So, for everyone listening, Augustine Sedgewick is the author of Fatherhood, A History of Love and Power. He earned his doctorate at Harvard University. He has received numerous fellowships for his research on the global history of capitalism, work, food, family, and masculinity. He is originally from Maine. He now lives in New York City. Augustine Sedgewick, welcome to World's Greatest Dad. I have to say, you are a mind, in my opinion, as I read that out just a few minutes ago. Neil's quite good. He's like, hey, I'm almost through the book. He obviously revealed later that it was the audio book. But yeah, this is quite the
It
treat.
still counts, Ollie. I think that the audiobook has given us the ability to I think it's better to listen to an entire book than kind of fake your way through reading an entire book, right? Is that fair?
Look, the audiobook counts for sales just like any other. So much appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
There it is, folks. So audio, the original, it all counts. It all counts.
Just pay the money.
All right.
That's all we ask.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
so Augustine, just to set it up, you're so gracious for agreeing to be here. Ollie and I are dads. We are reformed TV people in that Ollie was a TV host. I say was because, TV does it still exist? We're not sure. I was a TV producer. Now we're just in this weird digital space, and we've done a lot of projects together. And but the project we do separately that unites us, that unites all of us, which is the reason we invited you here, is we're dads. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I have an almost 5-year-old son. Ollie has a 13-year-old son. And this is kind of, all the jobs we do, we've had, we will have. This is kind of the hardest, most important one, complicated. And when we came across your book, we were like, this guy literally wrote the book on fatherhood. We have to talk to him. Then we started listening to the book. And come to find out, when we always talk about fatherhood and being dads, it's usually like about our experience as fathers or maybe our experience with our dads. Occasionally we'll go to our grandparents, but we don't often wade into that territory. And we start getting into fatherhood, a history, and it's like, oh, this is about thousands of years of fatherhood. We're going to really zoom out here. How did you decide to tackle this expansive subject that literally spans millennia?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's really important to me because the book, as you say, is a history that spans thousands of years, but the questions are super personal for me too. I mean, I started doing this, researching this topic because exactly as you say, it was something fatherhood was something that seemed like I don't even know what we're supposed to be doing here, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't know how to find out. I mean, when I had my father when I was growing up. My father was a wonderful father, amazing father. You could not ask for better. He was so present. He was so solid. He was so kind. In the course of doing this book, it really made me appreciate how extraordinary it is that he was always present for me, always did what he said he was going to do, and was where he said he was going to be. And I just think that's such an extraordinary thing to do for someone amazing. But before my son was born, he had a stroke that really changed his personality and changed our family. And then when my son was born, Bill Cosby's mistrial was literally on every TV in the maternity ward, and it just seemed in that moment that the fathers I had grown up with, the men and families I had known as a kid, just no longer existed. The old models seemed to kind of no longer be what they had once seemed. And in that moment, I was just kind of left wondering, what are we supposed to be doing here? Who am I supposed to be as a father? And the only way I felt qualified to answer that question was by doing history. I mean, it's not that I think my questions that I had were kind of just like heightened versions of the same questions that everyone always has, the questions that you guys opened the show with. But those are very common questions. but they're not commonly addressed. Like, that is not what is in parenting books. Like, if you want to try to figure out what it means to be a father, a parenting book is not the place to go. A parenting book will teach you how to get your kid to sleep and eat and poop inside a diaper, and that's really important stuff. But it is not about what it means to be a father. And that's the question that seemed most urgent to me in that moment, and that's what I wanted to try to answer through history.
That's really interesting, and I'd love to get your definition of that difference in this circumstance, in this conversation right now, which is the difference between parenting and fatherhood, and it's got to be more than just gender. So, just want to dive into that a little bit more.
Well, that's a really interesting question. I mean, there are obviously there's obviously a lot of overlap, but to me, it feels like parenting. What I meant when I said parenting and parenting books. That's just like the nuts and the bolts practical issues, of which there are a billion, and they're hugely important just to like surviving as a person when you have a child. What it meant to be a father, now that to me is a different question because it implies a kind of role, right? It implies kind of becoming something, meeting a new set of expectations, acquiring a new identity. And at the moment when I acquired this identity, which has been weighted with so much meaning across the generations, I simply didn't know who I was supposed to be or how I was supposed to be that thing. And I didn't know where to turn except to the one thing I know how to do, which is history. And it was a really interesting beginning of the project because I very quickly found out that though fatherhood is kind of sometimes used as a metaphor for history, it's like inheritance, it's legacy, it's generations over, it's like origins and progress over time. It really has no history of its own. Like, there has never, as far as I know, and I don't mean to short the accomplishments of anyone whose work I don't know about, as far as I know, there has never before been a book that tries to write the history of fatherhood from the beginning to the present. There have been little studies about fatherhood at particular times along the ways, but no one larger project that's like, this is where this thing started, this is how it's changed over time, and this is how we've got to be where we are.
One of the things... Go ahead, Neil.
No, you
Go.
No, you go.
Oh, okay. So, wow, this is just an inspiring conversation. One of the things we encounter, because we talk to dads of different ages, right? And when we go back to our own fathers, we realize, there's a bit of that generational gap in your work as you've gone through the history of fatherhood. Have you? I mean, obviously, we know just between my dad, who was born in 1936, to me, born in 1977, huge differences, right? What are some of the interesting milestones you've seen in generations and the way we look at fatherhood and dads today?
Okay, that's a really important question. That's a huge question. All right, I want to start by saying that there has been really incredibly important changes over time. Right, every time there's this epochal changes in the world, men often experience that as a kind of identity crisis. Like, for example, the Industrial Revolution. This changed who men were expected to be in terms of their families. And we can talk about the specifics of that if you want. But every kind of epochal historical change has been experienced by men as a kind of set of questions about who am I supposed to be as a man, who am I supposed to be as a father, what does it mean to be powerful, what does it mean to have authority, right? And these big historical changes have changed our answers to those questions and often prompted us to look for new ones, right? In the past century, there have been really important changes in the world that have led to critical changes in fatherhood. For example, in the Cold War context, right? In the moment when American life is being compared to life in the Soviet Union, when our houses have to be nicer, when our cars have to be nicer, when our kitchens have to be new and beautiful, right? The point of that is to show how much better American life is than life under capitalism, life under communism, right? To show how much greater life under capitalism is than life under communism. God, why can't I say that properly? Anyway, those were the 2 points of comparison, U.S. and the Soviet Union, right? So we had to show how great American life was. Part of that was not just having the best stuff, but being happiest in our families, right? And so it's at this moment when the figure of the dad emerges, right? It's no longer enough to be like a stern disciplinarian patriarch, right, who protects and provides his family. Now, in the context of the Cold War, you have to be a dad, a friend to your kids, someone who plays with them after work, who takes them to the park on weekends, right? Someone who contributes to the happiness and well-being of the family and the household. And that's great. Like my dad was like that. He was a dad. He did great shit with us all the time. It was amazing. But it's also super hard to be to come home from work and want to play with your children and fill this other kind of role, which is not only about your own individual children and your own individual family, but meeting a kind of broader social, political, economic expectation. Right. So that's an example of how things have changed. There have been important changes. What I want to say more so is that sometimes the ways things have changed point to the way things have also stayed the same. And what you have seen since the beginning of the idea of fatherhood across thousands and thousands of years, across millennia, right, across the entire written historical record, is that men have defined fatherhood as a kind of godlike paternal mandate, right? And so the message has always been, I know what's best, do as I say, and you'll be protected and provided for. Right? It's a statement about power wrapped in a statement about love, right? I care for you. I know what's best for you. I'm going to do that. If you follow my instructions, you will be protected and provided for. And what's interesting about that is that only God or only gods could always know what's best. Only gods could always protect and provide for, right? Mortal men, especially me, cannot do those things. Right. So men are always in this position of like failing to meet their own expectations and having to kind of recalibrate and redefine.
It's really interesting too because I mean, you take it back all the way to ancient texts of Greeks in terms of how fathers and gods are represented, but it's not even in the last 50 years there was still this feeling. I don't think fathers were outwardly saying, I am God, I am your savior, I am the Lord, but they were saying, you do as I say. And, I am 40 years old. My parents were born in 1956. And so they're boomers. And I would say like they were the slippery slope towards, I definitely heard growing up, honor thy mother and father. Not so much because I said so, but, a little bit. This is what we're saying. This is the directive. This is what we are asking you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now cut to, decades later, and I'm a parent, and I'm a parent living in Brooklyn, and the movement of our time is gentle parenting, and kind of following their lead and remaining calm at all times and trying to guide in a certain way. And I wonder, is that still kind of a version of I know best, but my knowing best is just I'm going to help you through this? I mean, I'm not going to cut my son's hand off if he feels like Hammurabi, but I
Mm-hmm.
might take screen time away. Is this just the modern equivalent, or have we actually evolved?
Well, first of all, as a father, I would say that sometimes I do know best, right? I mean, sometimes we do. When we're in Brooklyn and we're trying to cross Atlantic Avenue, like, dude, I know best. Just let me do this. So there are real moments like that. Right? It's like if my son were left to his own devices, the child would be playing video games all day. He doesn't even know what video games are, and yet still, I'm sure that he would choose to play them all day, right? So there are moments when parents know best. I think that what we have seen is that, in men have adopted the mantle of fatherhood. Men have adopted this kind of paternal care as a way of claiming authority over people who are not only their children, right? So there are many instances in which I am going to make sure that my child makes a good choice, and I'm going to help him do that, right? And I'm going to try to be as gentle with that as possible. Although I am not always going to be calm. No one, that's not humanly possible. But more generally, men have adopted this model of paternal care as a way to claim power in society more generally. So you see how this really genuine form of caring for and loving someone becomes a kind of metaphor for power, masculine power and authority more generally. And I think when we are talking about fatherhood, both as an individual relation within a family and within a home and a household, and we also have to be talking about fatherhood and masculine power and authority more broadly. And those two things are not the same, but they are closely related and they are entangled. And so part of what I was trying to figure out in this book is, well, where do they meet? How do they intersect? How do they shape each other? Just the way we care for the people we love and the way we claim a place in the world more generally. So there is a distinction to be made there, even though I think there is a close relationship and a lot of overlap.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about the founding fathers of America in
For
that
example,
case, right?
right.
And I guess you could look at it through the lens of, you know, this was a way to assert power and authority and create order in a country that was new, that they were trying to kind of figure it all out in real time. I mean, how much of that was just kind of creating this story, this narrative to say like, oh, we're your father, and how much of it was actually because they wanted the people to obey?
Yeah, both. It's the tricky thing is it's always both, right? It's always both. Jefferson and his colleagues in the revolutionary generation, they didn't see themselves as founding fathers the way we see them now. They saw themselves as founding brothers. Or they saw themselves as members of a single generation who really did have to assert their generational prerogative against their bad father, the king. They thought it was their right and moreover their duty to stand up and say, hey, King, you have been a bad father. You need to let us mature and grow up and become men on our own terms. They genuinely thought that was their generational priority. At the same time, they also claimed this sweeping paternal mandate over Indigenous Americans and over Black Americans that they were not very eager to relinquish. And yet the paternal mandate that they claimed over Indigenous Americans and Black Americans, especially for people like Thomas Jefferson, was genuinely rooted in this kind of idea that we are going to help these lesser peoples, right? And that is a deeply racist and prejudicial and lamentable and catastrophically tragic idea. But it wasn't that it wasn't genuinely held by them. It wasn't fully an alibi. It was kind of a belief about hierarchy that itself was informed by kind of belief about what it meant to be a father, and for Jefferson, that applied in so many different ways because he was both his kind of founding father, but he also who created helped to create and played such an important role in creation in the United States. But when he claimed this paternal mandate over Indigenous Americans and Black enslaved Americans, he also claimed ownership of people who were literally his own children. And so the complexity of that role, claiming power in society, claiming power at home, caring for society that's hierarchically organized, caring for people who you perceive to be under you in the social hierarchy, caring for people who literally are your own children. These two things are very much entangled. They have in common a kind of sense of a hierarchy that has men and most often white men at the top. But this is of course just a story, right? It's not a objective fact. It's just a story about who rules and who doesn't. And that's part of what I was trying to critique through understanding the idea of fatherhood.
It's there's so many things about this that part of this is like been. I always, when I became a dad, I looked at my dad in a very different light, and I was like, "Do you know the stuff he did? Man, do you know what I have to do? You know what I mean?" And then you realize, different era, man, different era. And to kind of even fast forward to, what we were talking about, and frankly, for a lot of most of history, men have, shaped the world, shaped the family. We're in a slightly different era now. Some people might argue maybe we've gone backward a bit because as we've reeled a bit from the Me Too movement and we have, frankly, the second Trump presidency. What are your thoughts? Because I feel like this is the big thing: is reading the room now. Like, what is to under? I think history is really about not just going, okay, this is what happened, but this is what it was like when it was happening. So, let's talk about right now. What's the dad vibe now? How's it going to be shaped for this new coming generation? Because me and Neil are we're like old dads. We've got the thing figured out,
Careful. I just turned 46. I don't know who you're
I'm
classifying as
48,
old.
young man. You're fine.
Okay.
See?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I absolutely right. Look, the reason I did the history is to figure out what to make of the present, right? The reason I did the history is to figure out how to engage in the conversations that are happening and questions and debates that are happening right now, because I do think what we're seeing right now is a reemergence of the conversation, the reemergence of the questions about what it means to be a father. We've seen these questions asked across history. All of the men in my book had versions of their own questions about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, just like we and others are asking now. That's what we're seeing. And just as you said, some people think now we've stepped back. Some people think now we've stepped forward. And there is a real stark disagreement about which way is which, what's up and what's down, what's forward and what's back, right? There are a couple things that are happening right now that are really interesting and complexly related. One is that men now seem to be spending more time with their children, especially with their infant children, than ever before in the history of our species. And that's potentially extraordinary. That is potentially an extraordinary thing. Now, the other thing that's happening now is that half of our population seems to be saying that this is a terrible thing, that this is wrong, this is inappropriate, this is not men, this is not who men really are, right? And what strikes me is that we are looking, if I can speak collectively for every American and everyone in the world right now, I'll go ahead and say that we together are looking for a new idea of fatherhood, of manhood that can contain both of those realities. Right. We are looking for a new way to make sense of what a man is supposed to be, what a father is supposed to be in the world. Right. So how can we find it?
Well,
Dude,
yeah, I love
your
that.
your thoughts. Yeah.
No, I very much, I'm so excited to talk to you about this because I'm an elder millennial. Ollie's Gen X. I don't know where you fall, Augustine. You're somewhere in the middle.
1979. So I think I'm the very last person born before the millennial
You were
generation
so
started.
close,
Wow,
Augustine.
all right.
This close.
Wear your
Just
flannels
missed
and
it.
your,
Just missed it.
Jenko jeans.
That's the last guy out. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, good to know. I'm the lone millennial on the call. No, I mean, look, I always considered myself a liberal person, an open person, and I think, but we are just like the people you write about, to some or the only extent, a product of our times, right? And I think this first became clear to me when our daughter, when my wife was pregnant with our first, who's now she's going into second grade, and we were trying to figure out names, and do you like these names, and do you like these girl names, but then we started talking about last names, and I had always kind of said, well, as long as she has my last name, I don't care, and that was really kind of opened things up to put me on the spot of you say that you're about equality. And I was like, well, I want our kids to have my name. And we went back and forth about this for months and months and months. At some point we did have to make a decision because she was born, but we asked lots of different people their advice. I have my father's surname. My wife has her father's surname. It was just kind of, yeah, this is what you do. And my wife's question back to me was, why? Why though? And I was like, and the only answer I really had was that's what's done. But if I searched deeper, I knew that it was because I'd be embarrassed if
Hmm. Hmm.
my daughter didn't have my name. And if
Hmm.
she, if I took your name, which by the way, my wife's last name is Peel, I'd be Neil Peel. So that was um, not going to happen. We ended
Hmm.
up doing, I guess, the safe thing for the era we're in. Although it was
Hmm.
kind of, I remember when growing up, hyphenated names were like, whoa, that's a progressive family. We hyphenated, and we thought we were
Hmm.
rebelling a little bit because we put my wife's name second. Usually it was the man's name came last. But again, nobody even knows that anymore. So my kids' last names are Padover Peel. And sometimes they'll ask us, "Oh, so you're Padover and mommy's Peel," and they're trying to figure that out. But I say all this to say I'm going to link it back to Robert Zimmerman, Bob, the poet of our time, or probably my parents' time.
Right, right,
You
right.
write about how outwardly he was this projection of just being, like I said, progressive, all about equality, gender equality, racial equality. But then at home, he really wanted to be the man. And by that, I mean, like, he wanted to be the patriarch. He wanted to be in control. He wanted, the women in his life to kind of come and go as he pleased. Part of that had to do with, I'm sure, ego and fame and money. But, like, this inability to reconcile what you want and who you say you are to the outside. I'm a feminist man. I'm a father of girls. But then also, I know I do less emotional labor than my wife. We talk about it on this podcast. Every week there are things that come up, whether it's like play dates or birthday parties or after school. And my wife's like, how do you not remember that? Like, we talked about this. And I just, by default, it's not programmed into me. What do you think, where do you think we're headed? Where do you think we are now? Because we're not equal. I mean, is that the goal, to have totally equal roles, just different roles? I know I said a lot there, sorry.
You want me to say where we are now in terms of our gender roles and where we are going? That that would be. I would love to be able to do that. That would be amazing. Um, I think you made a lot of really good points there because, look, we have this expectation that we're progressive, we want to be equal, we want to be fair, we want to be just, and yet we also carry within us this old set of standards and expectations that we've internalized, that has come down to us across many, many generations, and it's not possible to fully just like expunge from the internal record, right? So we are living in a moment where we have to inhabit both of those sets of identities, and I think that is really confusing. Um, my first memories of being a father, not my first memories of my son and I being kind of really alone together, kind of really doing our own thing together, were from the fall after he was born, and I would strap him onto my chest, and I would go outside and get a coffee and just like walk around our neighborhood while he slept. And as soon as he would fall asleep, I would just take out my phone and I would scroll endlessly through Me Too stories. And that fall, when he was, this fall of 2017, when he was born, it was just like one after another, endless accusations and resignations. And I, I had this child who, by all indications, is a boy on my chest. And I'm scrolling through just like the most damning record of male behavior. Um, and I could not help wondering just like what is in store for us as men. What is in store for this child who, by all indications so far, is a boy who's going to grow up to be a man? What can I do for him to prepare him for that? And those questions were very much in my mind as I started this book. They are very much why I wanted to make it about wanted to understand fatherhood as a metaphor for masculine power and authority more generally. Like what I saw is that like fatherhood has kind of served as the ultimate explanation from why men rule. Like it's the ultimate foundation for male power and authority, not only within the family, within the household, but in society more generally. So I wanted to understand how that had come about in order to understand what we could do about it and what would be a better way to approach it. And the truth is that I did this research and I wrote this book and I got to the end of the book and I felt supremely disappointed. I felt even like a little bit of despair because in the record of fathers in history, in the history of fatherhood, I had not really found another way. Like I had undertaken this project to try to kind of find some new way through, and I had not found it. Turns out that the history of fatherhood is a really shitty place to look for a good way to be a father.
It's amazing.
And then about a year ago, I was finishing the book, and I was walking with my son to meet his mother for dinner, and literally, as we were crossing the busiest and most dangerous street in our neighborhood, I had this realization that I was doing the same thing that all these other men had done. I assumed that I should know what we should do, that it was my place to say, Father knows best, Father knows best, Father knows best, and this is who we're going to be. And in that moment, I thought for the first time that I should ask my son what he thought a father should be. And so I asked him, and without missing a beat, before we even got to the other side of the street, he told me that a father should be funny and good at hugging. And I have to say, honestly, I was really disappointed with that answer too, because in that moment, I thought that he was talking about his mother, who is genuinely both of those things, funny and good at hugging. And it was only after thinking about it for like embarrassing number of weeks that I realized that the problem was just that I had never learned to think of myself as a man and as a father as funny and good at hugging. Right? These were not qualities that I had prioritized as my part of as part of my masculine identity. And since then, I have been working on being funnier. I have been working on hugging, But also, I think there's a larger lesson there, which is just that, like, the history of fatherhood is like, father knows best, father knows best, father knows best. Maybe father should just shut up for a second and listen to what the people he loves are asking him to do and be.
That's quite profound.
Yeah.
Break the internet profound. We do have, I believe there's even a term for our inability to listen, which may involve the suffix splain. Perhaps you've heard of it, Ollie. There's this thing, Ollie, called mansplain. Maybe you haven't heard of it. I'm gonna
I
teach
know
you
man
about it.
spread. I've been accused of that a
yeah.
lot. I cannot. Yeah, like especially on
Yeah.
the plane. Like I'm a real bad at that one.
Yeah.
That's my worst nightmare.
I keep making the connection too. I mean, you have so many connections, and like we said, you cover so many years, so many millennia. But I mean, the hunter-gatherer thing, I feel like is something, even in just like regular water cooler conversation, the types of things people come back to, right? Like men are hunters, women are caregivers. It's in our DNA. It's in our like prehistoric narratives. This is who we are. And then I think about modern day or somewhat modern day, and the equivalent, at least for me growing up, and it's less so now, but still probably the norm statistically, like the father leaving in the morning to go to the office, or go to the quarry, or go to wherever to go do the job and earn the not the cow or the buffalo, but the money to then go buy the cow or the buffalo in the supermarket, and all of that time and experience they're missing with the kids. I mean, as and I know you talk about this a little bit, as women enter the workforce in higher numbers, and I know it's still unequal, but certainly there's an education gap between boys and girls. I don't know if that's going to end up leading to more women in higher positions, because you look at the Fortune 500 CEO list, and it certainly does not reflect the education gap. So I don't know if we'll ever catch up there, but I mean, if we are headed in that direction, I mean, what will that mean for patriarchy?
Yeah, there's no, I mean, just anecdotally, observably, I mean, statistically, there seems to be no question that women are killing it. I mean, just obviously, they're doing great. Um, I, this does kind of, there can be no meaningful kind of gender equality without a rethinking of our story of the shape of the family, the shape of the household, the shape of gender relations. Because precisely as you said, we have this deep historical understanding, which I would argue is a misunderstanding about who we are relative to each other. I mean, I think that one of the reasons, my theory is that one of the reasons that men have attached these extraordinary godlike, even godlike claims to fatherhood, like I know best, do as I say, and you will be protected and provided for. Well, spoiler alert, that's impossible. And it sets up men for failure. And the reason that men have, I think the reason men have historically defined fatherhood in these godlike terms is specifically to elevate themselves above women whose role in the creation of sustenance of life was absolutely vividly unmistakable. Whereas, in contrast, for the vast majority of the history of our species, there was no concept of reproduction that could have supported anything like biological fatherhood, and it was in fact only in the 1980s that it became possible to identify paternity with absolute certainty, which is amazing, extraordinary to me. That's mind blowing.
It
That
made
was
a whole
oh
career for Maury Povich. I don't know if you.
My
yeah,
God, bringing it back.
well, yeah. Geraldo Rivera would have been nothing without paternity testing for sure. But actually, that's not quite fair to Geraldo. My apologies. But yeah, it's like the power of the fathers. Historically, the power of the fathers is a storytelling power, right? Human beings have exhibit unique amounts of paternal care and involvement. The reason is that human beings have a unique ability to tell stories about meaning, to create meaning by telling stories. And men have told an incredibly powerful story about what it means to be a father that is not necessarily or fully or entirely or completely or biological, right? If you go back to the hunter-gatherer myth that you mentioned, there's some indication, some new research has suggested that women actually provided about 80% of a group's calorie necessity, right? And here they are out earning us men again, same as it ever was. The difference is that for millennia, there had been a story about why men ruled and how. And the name of that story is fatherhood, right? And so if we are going to have substantive gender equality, we are going to have new stories about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, what it means to be a family. And I think that would be hugely beneficial, especially for men themselves.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, no.
when we tell stories about our power that we can't fulfill or sustain, that makes our lives worse. That makes us feel like failures. And if we were to acknowledge that our stories about fatherhood have set a set of standards that's literally impossible to always fulfill, we would be a lot more forgiving with ourselves and each other when we need help and when we ask for help. And we all do need it.
Yeah.
We should ask
Well,
for
and
it.
that's really interesting. I mean, I guess that kind of goes back to the God thing, because I see it in our 4-year-old son. I see it in myself. I see it in famous men and friends who are men. This inability to ask for help, you know, it's really, we really don't want to be seen as vulnerable, and gods are not vulnerable, right? And so I've never thought of myself as a god, but I think it is that kind of inherent programming of like not wanting to, need other people to help me do something. I wanted to ask you because, I our firstborn is a girl, and my wife is a super awesome feminist, and made me come closer to the actual feminism I purported to believe I was. The values I held before we met. So I'm working on it, trying to get closer. But as a result, a lot of the books we bought and read and messages we send to our daughter are, very much in the like Beyonce, AOC, Hillary, Oprah, Michelle Obama. These are, I use these just as like cultural touchstones because it's girls rule the world. You can be anything.
Mm.
And I feel like it was a real overcorrection because of the state of the fact that historically girls haven't ruled the world, right? Like they may have contributed, as you said, like equal or more than men, but we're starting in popular culture to tell these stories that like girls are amazing, girls are capable, and I think so much so that you know the great poet of our time, Taylor Swift, has a very famous lyric, "Fuck the patriarchy," right? And we all sing along all too well. You know that one, Taylor's version. It's about Jake Gyllenhaal. She left her scarf there at Maggie's place. Anyway, she says, "Fuck the patriarchy," right? I mean, that is a bold statement, right? Like, fuck the patriarchy. I could deduce that she's saying fuck the powers that keep us down, but I mean, the patriarchy is literally the system that you're talking about that's existed for thousands of years. How do we message to our son who reads a lot of these
Mm.
books and sometimes asks, are there any books with boys for us, for me? Um, and my wife said, well, maybe we should get him some. I said, he'll figure it out. Like, well, he'll enter society and realize these books exist because to some extent it's the world we want to inhabit, right? It's like
Mm.
Shonda Rhimes creates these very diverse uh, TV shows that do not reflect the reality of, often an ER or an ancient kingdom. It's amazing, but it's what we want it to be.
Mm.
What do we? How do we make the world that we want instead of the one we're really in?
Ew. You're
Thank you.
asking a lot of our guests.
If you just keep
Jesus.
talking, you sometimes get there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, yeah. So you can read this as an implicit critique of Taylor Swift or not, depending if you want to. And I say this as someone who absolutely loves the song. What's it called? I Knew You Were Trouble, or it was just called Trouble. That's such a good song.
I knew you were trouble when you
When you walked in,
And yeah,
that's
that's a
right.
great song. She's quite
Amazing
talented.
song.
She's quite
So
talented.
good. Yeah, that's what I hear. Um, fuck the patriarchy actually has different a double shadow, double meaning if you think about it. And I think that the interesting thing about its shadow double meaning is that many of the most feminist women I know also want men to fulfill a stereotypically masculine role,
Mm.
especially in romantic contexts. Right? So there is value in learning to inhabit a variety of identity expressions, right? There is value in being a man. There are amazing things about it that are worthy of celebration. I think the key thing to do for me is to place the value and virtues of manhood within a set of kind of other identities that are also equally worth celebrating and valuing. As far as where we find that in children's literature, I mean, it strikes me that the paradigmatic boys of my children's literature are Frog and Toad. So, If we can see how Frog and Toad have accepted and recognized each other's identities and subjectivities, I think that might be a really nice way to start. I mean, this is an interspecies friendship that I think might be a model for.
Mm.
Hmm.
I just wanted to throw this out there because I think we kind of touched on it, but the fact is, men and women are kind of divided about basically, you know, roles, gender roles, right? There seems to be, quote, a lot of progress and a lot of pushback. That's just my take on it. And when I actually was, ideating this podcast and texting a friend of mine, she said this, and I just thought this is something to add to it. He said, I'm going to be honest with you, men are being left behind and villainized, in her opinion. And I just wanted to add that in there too, because I think, even from a female perspective, there is a divide, and as we, approach this new era of roles of men identifying as fathers, it's interesting that there is a mixed. I don't know if you got the memo. Things feel a little divided lately, and I just wonder, like what, and also to your point as well too, of that, like even the strongest people with deep convictions to feminism still believe in the role of a man to a degree in traditional terms. It's interesting, There doesn't
Or
seem
are
to.
attracted to, right?
Yeah.
And to your friend's comment, I would say men are being left behind and villainized, and sometimes not unjustly.
Mm-hmm.
But story's not over.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too late.
So I don't know if the three of us all have kind of a similar perspective or POV, but I feel like one of the things with this podcast is we're always, trying to just create a space for dads to, be open, and maybe share the bad and the ugly along with the good and the fantastic. How do you guys relate to, this current context of feeling like you're not doing good enough? And I'll spill my guts first because I've been feeling it forever. I'm someone who's never consistently been like, I gotta go out and get the bacon. I've had all kinds of jobs. At my peak financially, I was traveling a lot. I wasn't even around that much. Now I find myself as a kind of a pseudo, not economically sustainable, but a stay-at-home dad. And lately, I found the greatest joy and purpose as a adult person with a family of like making foods that my kid demands I make for him. Like I made French fries, Neil, as I mentioned at the top of the weekend. I made French fries, carne asada fries. Like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, just do you feel you're not doing enough? Do you feel like you're not living up to the dad you feel like you should be? Not so much maybe think, but feel, because that's I feel inadequate. I feel inadequate.
You go for it. Yeah. What do you think? I can.
Do I do I also feel inadequate?
I would say. Well, before I'll say I feel adequate. I don't know that I feel like I'm excelling, but I'm trying to.
Hmm.
I think I don't know if this is true or maybe something you came across in your research, Augustine. Like I kind of feel like so much of my life now is a reaction to my childhood. How I was raised. My parents had a line like, if you don't like it when you're a parent, you do it differently. And sometimes I'll throw that back at them, when they're kind of like commenting on my parenting. I'm like, isn't this literally what we talked? Like the prophecy has come true. And I think like for me, uh, yeah, finances are a big part of it. I don't know that I feel the pressure maybe that my dad felt just generationally, because things are more equal. And I'm like, oh, we'll figure it out as a team. I think for me, and this is just my experience, I feel the pressure to like create a not chaotic environment emotionally, which is not my default setting because as someone who comes from a background, and I know you do too, Ollie, of like, mental illness and screaming and fighting. Um, and like this is to say, like, I feel like I had a pretty decent childhood. It's just that like that was the norm. It was like we fight big and we make up big, and it doesn't have to be that way. I don't think so. We're trying to model conflict's okay, but you don't have to feel unsafe. You don't
Mhm.
have to feel small. Um, so I mean, like that's the way I'm doing it differently, and I think I'm doing,
Mhm.
as I said, an adequate job, Ollie. And I hope we can get
Mhm.
you there too. But Augustine,
Mhm.
where do you, I know you kind of talked about some of the feelings of insecurity about like what the role of a dad is. I mean, where do you feel like you're just killing it? Where do you think you want to do better?
I love this part of the podcast. It's really amazing for you guys to share those things. I think that's really wonderful. I mean, do I feel inadequate? Absolutely, aggressively so. But the truth is, like, I feel like I've learned to live there. Like, I like living there because it makes me want things, and I like to go get them. You know. Um, I do think that there's a deeper point there, though. It's not, because I'm talking about feelings of like individual inadequacy. Like I haven't done everything I want to do, or I haven't yet accomplished all the things I want to accomplish. And there's a way in which I've learned to love that and inhabit that. But I do think that there's a broader question about like what it means, like inadequacy about what it means to be a father. Like I think that inadequacy has been built into our inherited ideas of fatherhood and of love and the way and like we have inherited a set of standards of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a father that we cannot always fulfill. And if we expect ourselves to be able to always fulfill those, we will feel chronically and in sometimes cripplingly inadequate. But I think we should understand those standards as stories rather than realities. And I think if we did that, we would be more forgiving with ourselves and each other and more willing to ask for the help we need. I mean, like, if it and I think that it could be the basis for a really important shift or change. Like, but I don't think it's an individual problem. I think it's a social and political problem more generally. Like, if in our country, just imagine this for a minute. If in our country it were not a financial disaster to be a human being, like if it were not financially catastrophic to get sick or have someone in your family get sick, if it were not financially ruinous to want to send your kids to school, right? If it were not an economic disaster to want to live in a house and eat foods and sometimes go out to eat and go on vacation or something, like if it were just like in our country, if these basic human needs were not like just like financially catastrophic and potentially ruinous, like if we could have some kind of supported healthcare and education system just for starters, right? Then I think it would be easier to inhabit like the identity of a parent or a father or a man as a set of kind of ebbs and flows and ups and downs. Like if we were to have a stronger baseline or foundation of security, it might be okay for us to admit, okay, well, I'm falling short right now of where I'd like to be and I need some help with that. Like, but instead, we've set up this system in which kind of our failure to meet impossible standards is understood as a kind of individual failing, which it is not. It is a failure of the standards and the system that they have taken shape within, right? And so I think it would be profoundly transformative, not just socially, not just politically, not just economically, but also individually and as a family, if we could have these kind of more robust forms of public welfare and support. This would be transformative for men above all. It would be so good for men
Yeah.
because we wouldn't feel like failures
Yeah.
if our families had financial struggles,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and it's really interesting because, like you said, the word welfare, and welfare has become such a dirty word, and it
Yeah.
has been weaponized. Much like the word patriarchy, right? Like the idea itself can be pretty neutral, and or even positive, but it's kind of what you make it, and yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even want to use the word because it's so loaded, but
Yeah.
nothing would be better for men than a broader array of social services
Yeah.
that would
Let's say
support
welfare. I think welfare
yeah.
is great. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
Ollie's
would
gonna
be
throw
so
one more at you.
transformative for masculinity. Yeah.
Ollie's
Oh
gonna throw
yeah.
one more at you, and then we're gonna move to our lightning round,
I
and then
just
we'll get
want
to
to
the
Okay.
say
first
this.
thing.
That actually made me feel better about myself because I will tell you, and maybe it's because when I doom scroll and I'll see this very sad ad for like St. Jude Hospital, and it's a father on the brink of tears talking about there's nothing worse than seeing your kid sick and you can't do anything about it. And it is so true. And as the son of a doctor, it is so true that we are freaking. You are one bad visit to a doctor away from just going down your life, going down the freaking tubes. Like my
Ruin.
mom's
Absolutely.
schizophrenic, and like the money we've spent. And thank God my dad was a doctor and made a bunch of money and didn't live super, super lavishly, that it all is kind of stabilized. But like 7K a month just because there's no system in place for that. And this is the wealthiest country in the world. But hey, I'm not Bernie Sanders. I'm Ali Khan. And, at some point I do have to bring it back to our lightning round. But before we do, and I think this is an opportunity to maybe lighten it up, but at the same time, have you kind of shape it to the Augustine version. I'd like to know, Augustine, describe to me your idyllic Father's Day. What would a perfect Father's Day be for you?
Mm, that's an interesting question.
Tell me you want
You
the
know,
chair from Brookstone. The massage chair. Is that you want to take it back? I know we're a year apart, so I know you remember that store.
oh, that's so funny. I feel like, yeah, you know what's funny is I feel like I always have it. The end of June, beginning of July is there's a lot happening in our family. There's a lot of good things happening. It's the end of school. It's Father's Day, right? Then it's the end of school in New York City,
Mm.
which always happens absurdly late, but we get there eventually. But
June
then,
26th this year.
right, it's always right around there. And so my son's birthday is June 28th. Right?
Oh
And
wow.
then we have the 4th of July, and then my birthday is July 5th. So in that time, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I appreciate you. I was waiting for you guys to say so.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Ollie.
yeah.
Happy birthday, Jesus.
Thank
Get me
you,
off the hot
thank you,
seat.
thank
Get me
you.
off the hot seat here. Ugh.
So we beginning. It kind of feels like beginning with Father's Day. We always have this like couple of weeks of really festive occasions, and my son and I always end up doing something just like really dumb together. Like this year we went to a Hilton in New Jersey and we swam in the pool and we ate at Chipotle and then we went back to the hotel room and we watched House Hunters. Right?
Hell yeah.
Just like some chlorinated water, chain restaurants, a heated, and then cable television. Man, oh man, that is just my recipe for a good time. And then the next day, like we went to the mall and like literally to a Brookstone or whatever the modern equivalent is, R.I.P. Brookstone.
Garden
But
State Plaza, Paramus Park. Where are you headed?
no, we were at
Too local.
what's the fancy one?
American Dream?
No, no. That's the bonkers one. It's got all the designer stores. We were at a Hilton. I'll think of it.
Short Hills?
Yes, yes, yes,
I'm from
yes.
Jersey originally.
Yeah, yeah. We were
No
at the
kidding.
Hilton Short Hills, and then we just popped up to the. It's got the what's Mario Batali's old Italian?
Italy?
Yes, it's got the Italy. Why can I not think of the names of things right now?
Yeah.
But
Speaking of Canceled fathers, huh? I mean, that's a whole other episode, which we'll have to do with you again in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah,
We want to be respectful of your time. You've been so generous.
Yeah.
But we are going to put you through our lightning round. This will take approximately 60 to 90 seconds. Ollie, fire it up.
Here we go. All right, here we go, Augustine. Parenting advice in 5 words or less.
listen.
That that's definitely less than 5 words. Super speed or invisibility?
Invisibility. I already have super speed.
Okay, all right. You look like you're in shape. Burgers or hot dogs?
Mm. Burger then hot dog.
Okay, I accept that answer quite well, actually. Favorite movie to watch with your son? Can't say House Hunters, because we already know about that. That's not even a movie.
Technically not a movie.
Maybe a good one. Maybe a marathon.
Anything with Gru. I just love Gru. Just the Despicable Me's are so strong. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny stuff. On Pixar,
Very
they're
funny.
pretty good. You can time travel to any period in history. What year are you headed to? Talk about an appropriate question for this guest.
No, I'm good, dude. No, thank you.
Wow, he knows a lot about history. Stick to right now. Favorite book to read to your son?
You know what is the best, the highest quality to word ratio is Where the Wild Things Are. Good
Wow.
God, what a book! That thing's probably like thing's
Yeah.
probably 200 words long.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Great pictures too. Greatest dad in history.
You're teeing it up for me here, but I'm gonna say mine.
All right, there you go. I'll take it. I mean, you wrote a book, for Christ's sakes. Best pizza in New York is where?
Oh, good question. You know what? You know what I really appreciate is I like how Pizza by Emily's pizzas are smaller. Okay, I do not need a table-sized pizza. Just like a regular person-sized pizza, like 14 inches as opposed to 20. Totally fine with me. Emily.
All right. Album you can't wait to share with your son.
Oh, well, it's already done. We're going back and forth all the time. Yeah. Right now, I've really been trying to turn him on to Born in the USA. Because, there's some, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one, but
Please, of course. Had it on cassette.
Jersey.
of course, right. That's my first cassette, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're going back over that. But honestly, the one we've done most this spring is Bad Bunny.
Oh, wow. He's contemporary. We're kicking it up a few
Oh
decades.
my God, dude.
Best advice your father ever gave you?
That's an interesting question. I think it was probably some variant of fuck 'em.
Meaning, to the naysayers and whatnot.
That's right.
All right. One book every dad should read, besides, of course, yours.
Okay, this is a tough one. The best book I ever read about fatherhood. I'm gonna go with two, if you don't mind. Okay, but the best book I've read about fatherhood is Philip Roth's Patrimony. Okay, little bit of a cancellation there. Nevertheless, amazing book.
Okay.
really profound. He's kind of at one point like caring for his aging father, who his aging father shits himself. Philip Roth has to clean it up, and in the process of cleaning it up, he realizes that the shit was his patrimony. Right? That was what his father had given him. And it's not in an insulting or dismissive or glib way. It's like, this is who we are. We are caring for each other. Right? That's my interpretation, anyway.
Wow.
Philip's own may have differed. I don't know. But then the book I think that everyone should read, and especially men should read, is called Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner. It's an incredible portrait of friendship, incredible portrait of manhood, and really an amazing story about two couples who are friends across the course of their lives, and they grow up, they grow old together, and it's really astonishing.
Okay. Last one. Best part about being a dad.
Oh God, that's so easy. I mean, it's just the crazy shit that you would never otherwise see or hear about or encounter, and the absurd kind of insane jokes that you never would have understood are funny, the totally surprising things that your kid brings you to discover. It changes your life by showing you a new world. It's the most profound, one of the most profound human experiences I could possibly imagine, because it does mean being reborn into a new awareness of being alive.
Amen to that. Folks, Augustine Sedgewick, I have to say, not gonna lie, just reading the initial bio Neil wrote up, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk to this person. It has been an absolute joy, because I think you've been one of the most rewarding interviews we've had thus far. And thank you for really just your work, your